Psychology of kleptomania. In this video, I'll talk about kleptomania, what it means, and then I'll go over the official DSM criteria of this condition. Then I'll talk about its causes and comorbidities. Comorbidity is simply a condition that occurs concurrently with a mental health condition. A lot of mental health conditions do not occur like singly; they usually occur together. So we'll talk about what other conditions are you likely to find in someone who also has kleptomania. And then finally, I'll talk about what gets stolen in this condition, because this, I believe, is the key to understanding where kleptomania really comes from, like having an in-depth understanding of it. And this is not usually discussed when we talk about kleptomania. So stay tuned for this. So first of all, what is kleptomania? It is derived from the Greek klepto, which means to steal, and mania, which means madness. It is a recurring, irresistible urge to steal and then following through with it and then stealing. If you get urges to steal repeatedly, but you do not act on those urges because you know the potential negative consequences of your actions, the social and legal costs of stealing, so you are able to control those urges. But people with kleptomania, they are not able to control those urges, and hence this disorder is officially classified under impulse control disorders. They are unable to resist the impulse to steal. Next, kleptomania symptoms. So these are the official diagnostic criteria for kleptomania. The first is a recurrent failure to resist impulses to steal objects that are not needed. So this is key here. Kleptomania, people who have kleptomania, the difference between stealing because of kleptomania and being a thief is that when thieves steal, they usually steal things that are valuable to them, that they end up using somehow, like that they either get for monetary gain or for some kind of utility. But it has been observed that people, those with kleptomania, when they steal, the items that they steal, they do not need them, they do not use them, they simply store them, or they give them away, and sometimes they even return those items to the store from where they stole them. So this is a key differentiator between kleptomania and shoplifting. Obviously this doesn't make sense when you look at it objectively, because why would someone, because stealing something is definitely an action that is risky. There are like huge social and legal costs to it. Why would someone do something because the impulse of doing that thing is so great? Why would they do it? Because and they do it, they don't even need that object. So why would someone take such a huge risk in stealing something and then not use it? So when I first read this, like criteria for official criterion for kleptomania, it didn't sit well with me, because I thought this doesn't make sense. Like people who we usually take risks when there is a reward attached to something, so there has to be some kind of a reward attached to this. Otherwise people would not act on these impulses, even if they lack the ability. Even if people who lack impulse control, they'll still refrain from taking huge risks. So there will be some impulse control there. So this is something that sort of opened this loop in my mind, that I wanted to understand that, because this does not make sense. This is very counterintuitive. The second criterion is that the people who get these urges to steal, they feel a tension before committing theft. So obviously when you lie when you're getting that impulse to steal, so you feel a subjective tension within you that you want to relieve by stealing. So when they commit the theft, after that they feel relief, the tension goes away. And the third point is, stealing is not explained by other reasons like antisocial personality disorders, or maybe they have a manic episode, or they have bipolar disorder, or maybe they have some kind of a delusion, or they're just being psychopaths. They're they have they may not have For psychopaths, for example, like they might steal for the sake of stealing, just to amuse themselves. But if none of these things explain uh, this behavior, then it's likely to be kleptomania. Now, why steal what you don't need? So, as I said before, kleptomaniacs may get rid of stolen items, simply store them or secretly return them. After they feel that relief that they get from acting on the impulse to steal, after that they tend to feel guilt, shame, or remorse, which means that their conscience is intact, and in the heat of the moment they may have ignored the potential costs of their behavior, but later on their feelings of guilt catch up with them, and they understand that they did something wrong again. Because stealing has huge legal, social and legal costs, it doesn't make sense. So this gave me an idea that maybe this has something to do with some kind of an evolutionary mechanism in us, in humans, that has gone wrong here. Because usually a behavior that is costly for her, for us, that we still do, and do so excessively and repeatedly, but that behavior is costly to us in our like evolutionary past, or our evolutionary past, that behavior probably had some advantages, which is why we still do them. So our mind has attached some kind of a reward to that behavior, and that's why we keep doing that in the heat of the moment, and later on we find out, oh, like we shouldn't have done that. But in the moment, we are driven by those evolutionary impulses and we act on them. So what those evolutionary impulses are and why we do it, why these kleptomaniacs do it, we'll find that out later. So let's go over the causes of kleptomania, what people usually attribute kleptomania to. Impulse is not regulated by the prefrontal cortex. So for example, we have so we have this older part of the brain, uh, it's called the lizard brain, that gives us these impulses. These impulses are selfish behaviors. These impulses drive us to do selfish behaviors that are sort of self-serving. A lot of them may have social costs, and or prefrontal cortex, which is the more recent region of the brain, it sort of regulates those impulses, it controls those impulses, it makes us think about the social uh, consequences of uh, acting on those impulses. And it has been found in primates, the larger the prefrontal cortex, the more social that organism is. So in humans are the largest prefrontal cortex because they are more social than other primates. But still, our prefrontal cortex is not as powerful uh, as or other regions of the brain. So which is why a lot of people struggle with impulse control. A lot of, even if they do not have any mental health condition, they still struggle with impulse control. It's very self control is a very rare trait in people, and people who, because it's so hard to control your impulses, we tend to respect those people who have self control, because we all know it's hard. In some people, it's like people who have mental health conditions, in those people, impulse control is way worse than in normal people. But people usually are bad at impulse control. So any kind of head trauma that might uh, damage the connection between prefrontal cortex and the older regions of the brain might lead to impulse control disorders like kleptomania. The second cause is the thrill of stealing. So when you steal something, when you see, when we steal something, we steal some kind of a resource from that person. So because we're getting something that can have, that can potentially benefit us, it, the very act of doing that thing releases dopamine, because acquiring resources is sort of, it's sort of like it's a rewarding activity in itself. I'll go over this later, like this rewarding activity thing. But getting things from people for free is thrilling because you're getting the reward, but you're not paying the price of doing that thing. This is why people like the free stuff so much, because it's thrilling. Like they feel, their brain is like, wow, I got this thing and I didn't even have to work for it. Wow, amazing. So there's a dopamine release that's associated with that. And then some kleptomaniacs, they say that during that phase in their life when they were being kleptomaniacs, when they were under the grip of kleptomania, during that phase they felt that they had little control over their lives. So taking things from others, like stealing from stores, could be a way for them to restore a sense of control over their lives, because taking something from someone is a very powerful act. It sort of empowers you, because you you gain power over this person from whom you take something. So it's a very empowering act, and you feel in control of your life. You feel you can get anything that you want or like. And then this is an interesting one: coping with negative emotions. So this is related to this. The dopamine release. See, when we seek dopamine, we are seeking to feel good, and usually when we are seeking to feel good, we are already feeling something negative. If you're not feeling any negative emotion, if you're feeling neutral, you will not have you will not desire to seek positive emotions. You will not desire to seek pleasure. But if you're already coping with some with a negative emotion like depression, anxiety, or other mental health conditions, they make you feel bad, and then you want to do something pleasurable to counter that. So unhealthy coping mechanism. So the thrill of stealing that people get from kleptomania could be a way for them to cope with the negative emotions that they're already feeling. And because the dopamine release feels so good, so it creates an addiction, and that's why this behavior gets repeated over and over, because you continuously want to get that hit. So it all makes sense if you see it from this angle. So next we'll discuss the comorbidities of kleptomania. This is not necessarily uh, in order, but depression is the most, like the strongest comorbidity with kleptomania. It's highly linked to kleptomania. And then anxiety and eating like these three: depression, anxiety, and eating disorders are strongly linked to kleptomania. And then we have OCD, compulsive work and shopping, bipolar disorder, substance abuse disorder, and personality disorder, specifically BPD. I was going through a paper. It was talking about the reasons researchers have attributed to kleptomania over the years, over the last, I think it was 100 or 200 years. And depression was something that came up more often than other reasons. So the next point is, what items get stolen. So I put this picture here because kleptomania is more, women are more likely to be kleptomaniacs than men. And the things that get stolen most often are food, clothing, and cosmetics. Now, when you look at this, see if kleptomania, like this, if you go back to this DSM criteria, a recurrent failure to resist impulses to steal objects that are not needed. But when you look at the things that are usually stolen by women who are kleptomaniacs, are food, clothing, and cosmetics. So that does not seem random at all, because if kleptomania if in kleptomania you steal things that you do not need, you do not have, that you do not see as valuable, then you would have stolen the random stuff, all the random stuff. But there are so many random items in the store that one can steal just for the thrill of stealing. But kleptomaniacs specifically they're more prone to stealing food, clothing, and cosmetics. And herein lies the key. So these items, obviously, they're not random. Why would a woman steal these things? Obviously, a woman would steal these things because they ensure her survival and they ensure her reproductive success. Food ensures survival. Clothing and cosmetics enhance a woman's appearance so that she becomes like more attractive. So it enhances her reproduct. Obviously, clothing also contributes to survival, keeps you warm and stuff. But like clothing for the when you wear fashionable clothing and cosmetics, you are trying to enhance your appearance, which ensures your reproductive success. So it's not random at all. What gets stolen in kleptomania is what's required for survival and reproduction. But here the thing is, these kleptomaniacs, they do steal these items, but they don't often end up using that. Obviously, that may be because of the guilt that they feel later on. But let's not discuss what they do with those items, because when we experience an evolutionary impulse, like it's a very in the moment thing, it's a very sudden thing that you get, and you act in a way that that impulse wants you to act, even if later you do not uh, get the value from the thing that you have stolen. But the whole point of you stealing that thing was because you wanted to ensure your survival and reproduction. So to understand kleptomania, because every time there's a human behavior that is confusing, you have to look at the animal kingdom and you have to see what similar behaviors other animals do, and then so that you can better understand why humans are doing that. So in the animal kingdom, there's this thing called kleptoparasitism. So parasitism in the animal kingdom is when animals steal food from other animals, and this is likely this is more likely to this phenomenon is more likely to occur in social animals like human beings, because in social species, because people are living together, because the organisms are living together, they can you don't always have to find your own food, find your own resources. You can always take uh, food and resources from your neighbor because 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 obviously, why bother looking for food, and why bother expending all that effort to find food and resources when you can just take it from someone? Why? Simply because you are living around a lot of other organisms, and it'll be easier for you to sometimes it'll be easier for you to just take things from others. So this I was reading. I couldn't find anything on kleptoparasitism in humans, but I did find this 2000. I think it was 2015 Russian. It was a Russian paper that I had to translate to English, and in that the author said that the humans may have this innate thief instinct, the instinct to take away things from other people. And it is evidenced by the fact that children, before they learn to speak, they rob, they take things like from their parents, from other children. They steal toys and food and stuff and all that. So we might have this innate thief instinct because it ensured our survival, because it's easier to get things from sometimes it's easier to get things from the other people than to get them on your own. And the fact that two of the 10 commandments in the Bible are about stealing, not taking your neighbor's stuff. So which means, because these rules, they had to be the human beings needed these rules because they had this tendency to steal from other human beings. So it makes sense, obviously. So in people who have developed a good who have exercised their prefrontal cortex, who have practiced controlling their impulses, they end up curbing these impulses. But that does not mean they may not get these impulses. They're just good at curbing them. They have over time, through education or and or practice, they have developed that strong ability to control their impulses. And and that moral sense to not take things from items from other people. Finally, the interesting answering to answer this interesting question, why more women are kleptomaniacs. See, humans in evolutionary times, they were hunters and gatherers. Men were predominantly hunters, and women were predominantly gatherers. We have this, and this is seen in today, because today, in modern society, we do not get opportunities to be hunters or gatherers, even though we want to be. So, what we have done is we've created these things that simulate these activities. So, our mind likes doing these hunter gatherer activities because these activities were associated with immediate rewards in our evolutionary times. Like for men, if they hunted, their status increased, they were respected. And women, when they gathered, they could ensure the survival of offspring. So these activities are very tightly linked to uh, pleasure in the brain when we do these activities, or activities that simulate these activities. So what do I mean by simulation? So in modern times, men do sports. A lot of sports that men play, they they demonstrate upper body strength, which is required for hunting. So when men are good at sports, they feel good about themselves. Other men respect them. And not just sports, even men who cannot play sports. A lot of men who cannot play sports, they even get those they even get those good feelings by playing video games, because a lot of video games, like what are there, a lot of them are again upper body strength: hunting, shooting, killing, fighting. All of those games demonstrate upper body strength. So men feel good when they do activities that simulate being a hunter. And for women, shopping is what simulates gathering. So they like many people know that women love shopping. It makes them feel good, and they can be, they can sometimes mindlessly shop. We can be very annoying for men, but if they understand that where this is coming from, she's just like he feels good when he's doing some sporting activity. In the same way, women feel good when they shop, because it simulates their gathering sort of activity. Because these activities, because they simulate our ancestral activities that were intrinsically linked to rewards, they still feel good to us. Our brain is like, see, our brain is like, okay, you're doing sports, you're shopping, nice, you are doing something that will enhance your survival and reproduction. So the brain rewards us for doing this, even though it does not make any sense. It does not make any sense to play a video game and develop fake skills of shooting when you're not even getting anything out of it. Like, it's just like the ROI of doing that activity is just pure fun. You're gaining nothing out of that. Similarly, when you shop excessively, you're wasting money most of the time. So it's not even a wise thing to do, but your brain just loves it, because it is connected very directly and tightly to our evolutionary rewards. These activities, because they feel good and they give us pleasure, they give men and women pleasure. These activities help them cope with negative emotions like depression. So if you have depression, if you have anxiety, if you have eating disorders, if you have other mental health conditions that are making you feel bad, doing these activities can make you feel good. Doing these activities can help you regulate those negative emotions. And we know that women are more likely to be emotionally dysregulated, and they are more likely to be depressed than men. So obviously they are more likely to be kleptomaniacs, because kleptomaniacs, they're doing the stealing to feel good, to regulate their mood. So that what kleptomania boils down to: doing an activity that simulates or hunter gatherer activity, which gives us that thrill and helps us cope with a negative emotion. That's it for the video. Thanks for watching.